The mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, glittered in the afternoon sun, a colossus of luxury and ostentation. A glamorous summer party was in full swing, the infinity pool shimmering like a reflecting pool where the deep blue sky met the distorted image of impeccably dressed guests. They moved in designer attire, their laughter and small talk forming a hollow symphony that echoed through the meticulously manicured gardens, a scene of wealth and exclusivity, yet where a veiled silence of social judgment hung for those outside that select circle. The air was heavy with the smell of chlorine and expensive perfume, a combination that suffocated Sofia even from a distance. In the opulent kitchen, where the heat of the oven and the steam from the dishes mingled with the smell of fine food, 17-year-old Sofia felt sweat trickle down the back of her neck. Her usually piercing blue eyes were clouded with weariness and resignation, fixed on the trays waiting to be carried into the dining room. Her simple, worn clothes contrasted sharply with the gleam of the silverware and crystal around her. She was the gardener's daughter, a ghost at this event, moving with the hunched posture of someone longing for invisibility, but with a spark of dignity in her gaze that betrayed a quiet intelligence and a deep melancholy. The party's hubbub, previously a blur of sounds, abruptly intensified with a thunderous toast from the pool area. Sofia, though accustomed to ignoring the din of the wealthy, looked up, a chilling premonition gripping her chest. Then she saw him, Ethan Blackwell, the tycoon's 18-year-old son, his blonde hair neatly combed, slipping on the pool's wet edge. The scene unfolded in slow motion, his slender, impeccably dressed body plunging into the water with a dull impact, followed by a stunned silence that fell over the guests, paralyzing them in their poses of shock and disbelief. An icy panic erupted in Sofia's chest, shattering the apathy and invisibility that protected her. Ethan didn't resurface, and the bubbles rising to the surface were the only sign of his presence, or lack thereof, in that sea of luxury and indifference. Dozens of people, paralyzed by shock and concern for their own reputations, hesitated, no one moving to help the young man drowning in the crowd. The desperation in Ethan's eyes, visible even from afar, was the push Sofia needed. A silent gesture of her unshakable moral compass that propelled her out of the kitchen. Are you enjoying this story? Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now we'll continue with the video. Sofia grew up under the cloak of invisibility, a heavy burden that shaped her from an early age. Living in a small, modest house at the back of the Blackwell estate, she witnessed daily the chasm between her world and that of the wealthy. At the age of 7, she saw her mother, a dedicated cook, fired without justification after a simple mistake, an event that deeply affected her, teaching her the fleeting nature of respect and the brutality of power relations. Since then, her soul, though pure, carried the weight of exclusion, the constant fear of being discarded, and a burning desire to prove her worth in a world that ignored her. A silent struggle that prevented her from dreaming big. Sofia's father, a man of few words and calloused hands, was the only link she knew to the harsh reality. He had taught her to observe, to be invisible, to not intrude. "They live in another world, Sofia. It's not our place," he always said, and these words echoed in the girl's mind, reinforcing the invisible barrier that separated her from the party guests. Yet there was an inner strength within her, a resilience forged in adversity that refused to be silenced, a stubborn dignity that contrasted with the taut resignation, and which now, in the face of danger, refused to accept apathy. As Sofia dove into the pool, the cold water embraced her, washing away the dust of her invisibility. She swam with surprising strength, her thin body driven by fierce determination, her simple, damp dress becoming a heavy burden, but not stopping her. The bubbles on the surface betrayed the inaction of the others, and the sight of Ethan's lifeless body floating like a ghost in the crystal-clear water sharpened her despair. Her blonde hair, once seemingly untouchable, was now disheveled, and her once arrogant blue eyes were closed, revealing the fragility that luxury used to hide. Reaching him, Sofia felt the cold on his skin, the weight of his inert body. With superhuman effort, she dragged him to the edge, her muscles burning with tension. Her cries for help were drowned out by the general panic and disbelief of the guests, who were now crowded around the pool, their expressions a mixture of shock, disapproval, and even disgust. "Get out of there, girl!" a security guard shouted, trying to pull her away, but the urgency of the situation was undeniable. The scene, which seemed straight out of a movie, was the stark reality of human indifference. The tension grew with each passing second, and the connection between Sofia and Ethan deepened in that crucial moment. As she tried to revive him, the disgusted looks from the guests were like pinpricks in her skin. She was an intruder, a stain on this scene of perfection. One of the guests, with palpable contempt in his voice, muttered, "A kitchen maid! How audacious!" The bureaucracy of rescue seemed slower than time, and each second was torture, a cruel reminder of the division that separated them, but which, in that moment, became irrelevant in the face of the life that was fading away. Ethan's parents finally emerged from the confusion, their faces pale with shock. Mr. Blackwell, a burly, stern-faced man, gave Sofia a disapproving look, as if her presence, drenched and dishevelled, was more offensive than the emergency itself. "What is that girl doing here?" he growled, before finally focusing on his unconscious son. The pain of invisibility, once a burden, was now a shield, shielding Sofia from the judgmental gazes piercing her. The ambulance arrived amid the chaos, its sirens piercing the tense silence. The paramedics, with their methodical efficiency, took control of the situation, removing Ethan from the pool and administering first aid. Sofia, exhausted, watched from afar, her body trembling from the cold and the adrenaline slowly dissipating. She was no longer useful, and the space around Ethan was now occupied by authority figures and the concern of his parents, who had previously hesitated to act. Despite Ethan's initial recovery, who was rushed to the hospital, the Blackwell family remained skeptical of Sofia's version of events. Doctors questioned the severity of the incident, and the accidental fall narrative served the family's reputation better. Sofia was briefly questioned by one of the security guards, her words disbelieving and her blue eyes observant, but unsurprised by the indifference surrounding her. She was, after all, just the gardener's daughter, an inconvenient witness in a story the Blackwells sought to control. The following days were filled with anguish for Sofia. The fear of being ridiculed for her intrusion tormented her, but the weight of the truth was greater. She revisited the pool scene, Ethan's pale face, the guests in action, everything replaying in her mind like a loop. The wealthy society, with its web of gossip and veiled contempt, seemed more threatening than ever, and the possibility of her father being fired for his audacity left a lump in her throat. Despite everything, a faint thread of hope persisted in Sofia. Every day she asked her father about Ethan's condition, seeking any news that might validate her actions. Ethan's vulnerability in the water, the way his arrogance crumbled, revealed a humanity Sofia hadn't expected. This image, so contrasting with his portrayal, planted a seed of compassion in her heart, a recognition that beneath the layers of wealth and status lay a human being in pain, someone in need of help, and who, in his darkest hour, was saved by an invisible. Months have dragged on since the incident, the Blackwell mansion resuming its rhythm of luxury and social events, but with an underlying tension. Mr. Blackwell, a real estate magnate known for his cold, calculating manner, held a press conference to publicly thank the medical team that treated his son, an obvious effort to downplay the incident and protect the family's image. The room was packed with journalists and photographers, their cameras flashing incessantly, ready to capture every word, every gesture, but above all, every flaw that might become newsworthy. Sophia, who was at the back of the room, about to discreetly leave, felt a shiver run down her spine when Mr. Blackwell's voice began to echo. He spoke of resilience, of gratitude, but in a hollow, emotionless way, as if he were reading from a predetermined script, polishing the story so it shone flawlessly. The speech was an orchestrated play, an attempt to bury the incident under a cloak of social convenience, ignoring the truth behind Ethan's accidental fall. Beside his father, Ethan Blackwell, now recovered, looked different. His blonde hair was still impeccable, but his blue eyes, previously filled with arrogant boredom, held a newfound depth, a gravity that contrasted with the superficiality of the surroundings. He wore an expensive suit, but the fabric could not hide the vulnerability that time and near death had etched into his soul. He listened to his father with an expression of growing discomfort, an eloquent silence that heralded an impending storm, a truth that could no longer be contained. Mr. Blackwell was at the height of his speech, about to finish, when Ethan, with a cracking voice that cut through the air like a sharp blade, interrupted him. "Dad, wait!" he said, the words carrying unexpected force. The audience fell silent, everyone's eyes fixed on the young man. The tycoon turned in surprise, his expression barely concealed, while Ethan looked directly at Sofia, who, at the back of the room, tried to blend into the shadows, her body tense with anticipation. "I need to tell the truth," Ethan began, his voice gaining strength, his eyes fixed on Sofia's. He described the details only he and she could know about the despair of drowning, the darkness that engulfed him, the terrifying stillness of his friends who ignored him, the panic that consumed him as he felt his oxygen drain away. Each word was a blow to his father's fabricated speech, a stark revelation of human cowardice contrasted with the courage of a stranger. He continued, his voice cracking but firm. "I saw her. I saw her dive into the water while everyone else just watched. She was the only light in my darkness, the only one who cared." Sophia's breath hitched in her throat, her eyes welling with overwhelming emotion, disbelief mixed with gratitude. She was the gardener's daughter, but in those moments, in Ethan's eyes, she was his hero, and the invisibility that had suffocated her crumbled in the face of the public recognition of her bravery. "She's Sofia," Ethan declared, pointing at her, "the gardener's daughter, my hero." Camera flashes exploded, and all eyes in the room turned to Sofia, who could no longer hide. Her face, previously marked by resignation, now radiated a mixture of surprise and pride, the dignity in her blue eyes brighter than ever. That moment, so simple in its essence, was the recognition she never sought, but which, when given, validated her existence and the strength of her character. Mr. Blackwell, taken aback, tried to intervene, but Ethan held up his hand, silencing him. "Father, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. Money couldn't buy the courage that saved my life," he declared, a statement that echoed through the room, the truth shocking everyone with its brutal simplicity. The room fell into stunned silence, Ethan's words piercing deep into their consciousness, a stark contrast between the material coldness and Sofia's warm humanity. The look between Ethan and Sofia deepened, an unbreakable bond of gratitude and mutual respect, transcending the social barriers that separated them. In that moment, there was no longer the tycoon's son and the gardener's daughter. There were simply two human beings, connected by an act of courage and a shared experience that had profoundly transformed them. The silence in the room was filled with palpable emotion, the truth finally being heard and acknowledged. The press conference, which was supposed to be a public relations event, became a stage for the truth. The media, thirsting for a story of resilience and heroism, captured every word, every nuance of that transformative climax. Sofia, previously anonymous, now took on the shape of an unlikely heroine, and the hypocrisy of high society was exposed by Ethan's brutal honesty. It was the triumph of humanity over convenience, of courage over indifference, and the consolidation of a bond that wealth could never buy. Are you enjoying the story? Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now we'll continue with the video. Impacted by Ethan's honesty and the inevitable pressure of public opinion, the Blackwell family made a decision that would forever change Sofia's fate and the family's legacy. Mr. Blackwell, a pragmatic man who understood the power of image, realized that the best way to rehabilitate his reputation would be to embrace the truth and honor the girl's courage. Thus, within a week, the Sofia Blackwell Foundation for Education and Health Access was created, a name that united the girl's simplicity with the family's grandeur, a public recognition of the dignity of a humble life. Sofia was invited not only to be an active part of the foundation, but to be its voice. She, who had always been treated as part of the furniture, now had a seat at the table, her quiet intelligence and unwavering moral compass guiding the institution's actions. The foundation, with initial capital of $10 million donated by the Blackwell family, would focus on providing full scholarships to young people from underserved communities and access to quality healthcare, starting in 3 major American cities, a symbol that true wealth lies not in accumulation, but in sharing and transforming lives. Sofia's life changed dramatically. She received a full scholarship to the prestigious Yale University, where she pursued her long-delayed dream of law. Her role in the foundation gave her a purpose that transcended social barriers, allowing her to inspire others with her story of resilience and compassion. She discovered that her voice, previously silenced by invisibility, had the power to move mountains, and that her experience of suffering gave her genuine empathy for those facing similar challenges. Ethan, for his part, transformed his arrogance into humility. The pool incident had awakened him from his bubble of privilege, and he became a fervent advocate for social justice. Working side by side with Sofia at the foundation, he learned the value of service and empathy, trading empty parties for visits to underserved communities, using his influence to amplify the message of hope. Their story, a tale of quiet heroism and redemption, quickly became a beacon of inspiration for thousands, proving that heroism can emerge from the most unexpected places, and that true nobility lies not in birth, but in the courage to act when everyone else hesitates. 10 years later, Sofia was a successful lawyer, known for her work on complex social causes, defending the rights of the invisible. The Sofia Blackwell Foundation was a beacon of hope, present in 20 cities, with thousands of young people benefiting from its scholarships and health programs. At a foundation fundraiser in New York, she met Ethan again, now a respected philanthropic leader, his blue eyes shining with a maturity that life and work together had given them. They talked for hours, not as the gardener's daughter and the tycoon's son, but as partners, friends, and souls connected by a greater purpose. During the event, Ethan introduced Sofia to a quiet young man with frightened eyes and simple clothes, the foundation's newest scholarship recipient. The boy, as invisible as Sofia once was, carried within him the same flame of dignity. Sofia welcomed him with a warm and encouraging look, the same look of hope that had saved her from invisibility, and said to him, with a gentle smile, "Welcome to the family, where value is in who you are, not in what you have." The cycle of compassion and resilience closed and opened to a new generation, showing that true nobility lies not in material wealth, but in the courage to act and the ability to recognize human worth. Have you ever done a kind act that changed a life? Leave a little heart if you think love is more powerful than any wealth. Subscribe for more second chance stories. Believe in the power of change. Share this story.